sense of purpose and belonging. With identifying as black, they found their calling and purpose. So when they see someone like you or even me with a like opposing view or a different way of thinking, it's hard for them to have that paradigm shift, to shift their mindset. So they block out the information. No, I don't want to hear it, because they've already found their home.
Yeah.
But it just takes time, I feel like. That's why I call it a phase, a period in time, a pro-black phase. They're just in, like you said, they're in that phase where they found their purpose and they can't hear anything else that is like directly kind of attacking their viewpoint. But with my work and a lot of the people who are like followers or supporters, over time, like it just takes time. Eventually they realize, oh, you were right. You were right all along, and the message resonates with them. And then these are the people I often find that are like extremely thankful for what I'm doing, because now they realize, okay, it's okay for them to be themselves. They can have their own voice, because often when multiracial people are in those pro-black circles, when they're in black spaces and they're pro-black phase, they know in their heart that they can't truly be themselves. They have to they have to overcompensate. They have to do more to appease black people. They'll be like, well, you're mixed, you don't experience the same racism as me. I'm dark skinned, I'm a real black. So I experience the real racism. So they'll invalidate you, and it makes people feel a certain way. They have to like prove themselves continuously. Because if they don't do that, black people are gonna push them out and outgroup them and say, oh, well, you got a white mom, you're not even really black, or this or that. Like it's a constant theme, and it's a cycle that repeats itself. And so I got out of that when I realized, I had my epiphany moment. I was like, there is no positive kind of ending to this scenario. This is a situation where they want to use me, and then I get nothing in return. It's not a fair trade, not a fair partnership. It's not a real sense of community and belonging. So it's very interesting.
Very similar to Brazil.
All right, so I have a couple more questions I wanted to ask you. Very important ones. We kind of, touched upon it yesterday during our, private, personal dialogues. It's funny because it wasn't really so private. Some of the stuff we were talking about in the Uber or in the public, like waiting area or eating lunch, it's like, oh, we're talking about this kind of racial topics, which is controversial, and we're kind of oblivious to the people around us who could be tuning in. And I know I kind of got some looks from the English, speakers, but I was like, oh, this is kind of, touchy topics, but we were having a good time, and we definitely covered a lot, talked about a lot. So what I wanted to ask you is, what's your experience with the stigma of the word mulatto? Now, Beatrice here just basically informed me that here in Brazil, in like the 1970s, that decade, there was actually a course that people could take, females, a private course to how to be a mulatta. And it wasn't just the aesthetic, but it was also the behavior and stuff like that. So she just informed me right now, like a minute ago, there was an actual course here on how to be a mulatta. Very interesting, but there's a lot of stigma with the word mulatto. And I branded myself, mulatto vanguard, because I want to bring the word mulatto back into the public consciousness, because the ultra specificity of mulatto is important. Because oftentimes my detractors, what they'll say is, well, we're all mixed race. There's no such thing as mixed race. We're all a little mixed. And then they'll always say is, well, there's different other races. There's different biracial. It's not just black and white. What about those ones? And it's like, well, look, and I always reply, and of course they're always quiet when I reply. I tell them, mulatto is ultra specific. This is a blend of the harmony between European and African. And we have existed for centuries. And this is precisely why I feel like the word is important, and I want to destigmatize the word mulatto, because it's tied to our history. We've been existing for centuries, and we can look back into the history, just like what Beatrice, you just told me right now. In Brazil, they literally had courses for mulatto women to be a mulatta. So that's part of the history that we can draw from. It's tied into our identity, learning about the past, how we can improve ourselves and move forward for a better future. So I want to talk to you about the stigmatization of mulatto. in Brazil. And I'll just say firstly that because in America there's a lot of stigma with it, the word, it's seen as a bad word. When it was on the census, people like me and others, we were counted as mulatto on the United States Census from the inception, meaning the beginning of the census data taking, which was 1790, I believe, so over 200 years ago. But they removed the mulatto category in 1930, United States Census. They basically, the imposition of the one-drop rule. The one-drop rule was, it started in 1924 in the United States, so 100 years ago. And then when the census, the new calculating questionnaires came out for the year 1930, they removed the mulatto category. So they put mulattoes into blackness, and it was by design, by the policies in the United States to basically neutralize us as a group. Neither here or there. So there's a lot of stigma with the word mulatto, even though there's a long history, it's all in the text. What I often find is the people who have an issue with the word mulatto, they have an issue with mulattoes identifying with the word and identifying with the people and the history more so than the actual word, or the, like I said, the perceived negative connotation, the etymological roots, saying it's from mule or mula, which other sources say in the Arabic linguistic system, it means the mulawad is a mixed person because you have Arab trade with Arabs and Africans, and there's been mixed populations there. So there's a lot of stigma with the word, but I find that stigma being placed on it from outside sources, meaning people who aren't even mulatto have an issue with the word mulatto more than me or other mulattoes. And I find that interesting. And I'm like, well, why do they have an issue with the word mulatto? You're not even mulatto. No one's going to call you mulatto. They'll call a guy like me, and I'm like, thank you, you're right, you got it right. But they have an issue with us identifying with something that's independent from them and their infringement. They want us to basically beg for their acceptance and beg to identify with them so they can feel like they have power. They can just kick us out and say, you don't belong here, you're not black enough for this or that. And I'm saying the black part because these are the people who have an issue with the word mulatto. I don't see white Americans or Latinos or other groups ever say, like, that was a bad word, don't say mulatto. It's always Afrocentric, and it's because they have an agenda when they have an issue with the word mulatto, and I understand that. So there's a lot of stigma with that. I'll just add before I pass you the mic that there was a rapper who kind of inspired, she's a female rap hip-hop artist, who inspired me kind of to brand my social media and use mulatto. Her name was Miss Mulatto, and she did change her name to Lotto, so she took off the MU part and just stuck with Lotto. And she did that because she received a lot of pressure from her majority black fan base, because her hip hop music, she's marketing her music to, in the culture, is mostly the black people who like the black Americans who like the music. So a lot of them push back against the fact that she called herself mulatto. So she changed her name to appease the people, which is very sad. I don't like that, and I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure they don't try to do that to me. Because trust me, I've had even mixed people tell me, you should just call yourself, biracial vanguard or something like that. But that's not specific,
Yeah.
Biracial, that could mean anything, And so I love mulatto because it's ultra specific, and there's a history to that. But I'm very well aware there's a lot of stigma attached to the word, but that kind of excites me and motivates me because I want to challenge the stigma. But I want you to talk about how mulatto, how the word pertains here in Brazil, and the stigma that we kind of talked about the other day, the stigma with the word mulatto.
Here in Brazil, the word mulata and mulatto is a very sensitive content, a very sensitive topic to touch. And in our history, mulata and mulatto, it was a word that it was popular, for a long time, but it was that stigma about the stereotype of the mulata. So people talk about us mixed from white and black, saying that we represent Brazil, saying that we have the Brazilian beauty, but at the same time we were hypersexualized.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Hypersexualized all the time, and this image of this mulata, it was always used to export
Sex. Yeah.
sex, our bodies to the whole world, you know. So they was always saying that mulatto was something that Brazil should be proud. And here, when I say they, I'm talking about the government, the white people. They say, Brazil is represented to the from mulattoes and mixed from natives too, the caboclos, that how we call. But they were always putting her in that box that we are just to other people consume our body, you know. So it was very difficult to talk about that. Nowadays, the word mulatto and mulatta, you see them just in pornography, you know, in porn videos, porn websites.
I want to add something there. So, but you're saying that you're seeing like the title mulatta in like adult content, but that's in the Portuguese language, right? So I think that's kind of a local thing, maybe like in Brazil, that if you in the Portuguese language, if you type up or you search whatever adult content, and you'll find in the title, is that right? Like in the category, it'll say mulatta.
Yeah.
Interesting, because in the States it's not like that. Like I said, because of the one drop rule. So typically women who, when you look at them, they're like, this is a mulatta, but they use the term ebony or black. Ebony or black. Is like, yeah, so that's the one drop rule. But you're saying here in Brazil, they'll actually have a category, a title, yeah. It will say mulatta. That's interesting.
It's because mulatto, it was a very popular word, you know. Mm-hmm. And one time, the Black movement started to identify that this word brings this stereotype about the Brazilian woman. And we had books written here in Brazil that say that black women are to work, mulattas are to sex, and white woman to marriage.
I've heard that before. That's crazy. I have heard that before. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the whole problem about this word. But then people started to say that this word is from mula, and they started to don't let people use this word anymore. But it's something very recent in our history, something like 10 years ago. The same moment that I'm saying that black movement started to be popular, you know. So what they say, you can't say mulatto or mulatta because this is from an animal. This word is from an animal. So you are animalizing, and you are not considered as human. And they do this. At the same time, they say we are black. But the point is, when we can't say the word mulatto, and now they're saying that we can't say the word pardo too. When you can, here they try to make us don't say any term that means that you're mixed. You don't have to say that. Is what they say. You know, we cannot talk about this. Stereotype.
Oh, stereotype.
Stereotype.
Yeah.
If you don't give name to mixed people, how are you gonna talk about what we suffer that is different from black women? Because mixed women are more sexualized and has more this stereotype. But they propose that we change the word mulatto or mulatta to black. This is what they propose. And what I'm arguing here, and it's very difficult to talk about this word here. It's that the word doesn't come from mulus, it comes from mulad, from Arab, and that I need a word to talk about my experience, you know. because black and mulatto is not the same thing. I'm trying to do this, but it's very difficult. I said to Evan that if I put in my page mulata, this name, because parditude is not specific to. Parditude here in Brazil is similar to biracial, because you can be pardo from native or you can be pardo from black. So mulatto is the word, and the indigenous, they have the word caboclo that is similar to mulatto mixed with white, but they are trying to don't use this word too. They're trying to do that. A lot of indigenous movements, they are very inspired in this hypodescendence. In people that are mixed from indigenous, say they are just indigenous and don't talk about the other ancestries, especially if it's white, because white is the bad guy. So why you say you're mixed for the bad guy, you know?
That's kind of criminal too, because I'm saying it's kind of criminal that this society tries to basically convince people who are mixed with European that, don't acknowledge that you're mixed with European, like you said, because a lot of people will frame it that, they're the colonizers, and sure, there's colonizers, there's history, but like this is part of our heritage. Like with you and me, like we're literally like half, 50% European. It's part of who we are. So when we have forces or a group of people who are trying to tell us to deny ourselves, our heritage,
pretend that you are not.
Like it's not healthy. Like it's not mentally, you're not going to be healthy. It's just I don't register with that, and I came to that understanding with this kind of developed consciousness. I was like, look, I have to be myself completely and embrace myself. But I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I am always talking about that here in Brazil. It's very difficult, and I say, I recognize I am mixed from white, and I know they made a lot of bad stuff, slavery and everything, but I'm here to prove that I can be better than that. You know?
Yeah.
I can be, and if I don't recognize who I am completely, it's like you say, we suffer and we are pretending something that it's not real. So we are always suffering, you know. And it's that about the mulatto word. I think that we have a problem there, and sometimes when I don't want to be polemic, I say Euro-Afro, you know, Euro-Afro.
Yeah.
I say Euro-Afro-Brazilian, I say that, and people say that I am being very academic, you know. So they are always find something bad to say,
right,
you know.
Right.
And I never know what I'm talking, you know.
They just don't want you to talk. That's the thing.
Exactly. They just don't want me to talk about that. And it's that. And now, and I think I already talked a lot. I want to hear you a bit more. I want you to talk about your mulatto experience there, and I want you to say to me that if it's like it seems for us here in Brazil, that in the United States everyone accepted really well the one-drop rule, and how is the reality of this one that don't want to stay saying they're black, how things are if you say you're mixed, how black people see that, how white people see that, and how you feel. I want you to talk about what you said, that mulatto people in the United States, they want to go out of the United States because it's very difficult. I want to hear you.
Yeah, definitely. I mentioned that the other day that a lot of mulatto people who just the need for belonging, to find a place. A lot of them feel like, well, let me kind of escape, or let me go to an environment where there's more people like me, that's more welcoming. I've seen mulattoes who go to even Brazil. There's a famous mulatto. His name is Lenny Kravitz.
Yeah, I know.
He has a house here. I don't know which area, maybe out in Rio.
Really?
He's rich. Yeah, he has a house. He married a mulatto, Lisa Bonet, has a mulatto daughter, Zoe Kravitz, so he has a successful family. But Lenny Kravitz, who I've been a fan of since I was a kid, you know, but yeah, he has a house, he has a property out here in Brazil, so he found peace in this environment. But he's one example of a guy who's rich and, you know, successful, who kind of escaped some of the toxic environment in America. But I know there's other mulattoes as well who do that. They kind of find their place. There's a lot that go to Dominican Republic and some other countries as well. So it is common. or some go to Asia, etc. But I wouldn't say it's most of us. I just mentioned the fact that in some cases it could be super extreme to where a lot of us just kind of want to escape because there's a lot of toxicity in specific environments in the United States. The United States is a big country, right? Just like Brazil. So in different regions, there's different cultures and different people, even the demographics. You'll have an area where it's mostly white people, then you'll have another state, like say California or Florida, where there's more of a mix of black, white, and then Latino. So the demographics kind of change in different states and regions, and then the culture is different, of course, and the laws are different too, which is important. Because I know in Brazil, I have Brazilian students, they've told me how it's like the laws are kind of general across the board,
Yeah.
even with the states, but in the United States, it's different. Where we have states, and the states have a lot of power and influence where they have like specific laws in that state to where if you move to another state, different laws. So and the culture changes with that, with the laws there. And so there's some places where it's not so favorable towards mixed people. And I found in like places in the South of the United States, that's where it's more kind of like anti-mixed race, where they're more against interracial relationships versus where I'm from. I was born and grew up in California. I was just a normal guy. Like I didn't even think about the race stuff, the consciousness until I got into like high school. You know, like as I grew up, I had a white mom. Most of my friends were always white. I've always had black friends and stuff, and Mexican, Latino friends, Asian friends. Like there's a lot of representation and diversity. We call it diversity, different groups of people. So California was just completely different than some of these other areas in the United States you travel to, where there's a lot of negative, like there's like resentment towards your being mixed race. But I would say it's more of a, let's say a case-by-case basis on who you talk to, because I don't want to generalize and say that we're all trying to leave and go to Brazil or Dominican. It's not true, but what I want to stress to my audience, I think it's very important for a lot of mulattoes to travel to places like Brazil, learn some of the history, be acquainted with people, make friends in Dominican Republic, because you're basically expanding your options and you're building a network, and it's just, there's only positive that can come from that because we're represented here. There's more mulattoes, even like Rio de Janeiro. I'll be in Sao Paulo tomorrow, but I see in Rio de Janeiro, like all these mulattoes from babies, young babies, all the way to adults and grandmas. So it's like there's just more of us here than back home. And I mentioned to you as well, like with the anti-miscegenation laws that they have in the United States, but they've never had that here in Brazil. So they've made it illegal for interracial couples to get marriage licenses and to be married. They made it illegal. So they tried to have laws, and mainly in the South in the United States, where a lot of it's very negative, anti-mixed, where they made it illegal for us. So they tried to suppress our population growth. They tried to suppress and make it illegal to make white and black, get together and have kids and families. But those laws were basically overturned and overturned in 1967 with Loving versus Virginia, and that's when the one-drop rule got crushed. But people still push the one-drop rule, but it's not legal anymore. So in 1967, now people, there's more and more interracial relationships. So now what I'm saying is, short term, there's more mulattoes being born every day. I see a lot more mulattoes in society, but they're represented in the younger generations now. Versus when I look at the older generations, I don't really see that many of us, because they represent a time when there were literally laws, segregation laws to keep separate, and it was illegal for black and white to get married. Like there is a lot of strict policy in the United States, and it's pretty sad when you think about how the United States wants to represent itself as like for freedom and for justice and all this stuff, but they've made laws where it's illegal for a white and black to get married not that long ago. And they want people like me to think that like I'm wrong for being here, that it's that I'm not healthy, so like it does something like that type of energy. We're born, and mulattoes are oftentimes born into a situation where it's a very tricky situation to deal with when you analyze like the racial dynamics in the United States and how there's a lot of people against us. Um, and so that's why I advocate for people to look to other environments to see like how you see yourself being represented in everyday life. And it's normal for us. We not only can we kind of just blend in, but we're more normalized. We're not seen as a social pariah, I would say, like a problem or like an abomination. That's the extreme terms that people will say is you're an abomination or something. It's crazy. I kind of went on a tangent because there's a lot to talk about there, but with like because you asked me initially about my experience, mulattoes in America, how we're perceived, and that there's some mulattoes, like I said, who leave the country. There is, but it's kind of a case by case thing for sure. Um, I like America. It's just finding my place in the right environment. And the past like few years, I've moved around a lot to different states, different areas, and testing out the environment, the market, and these different environments where I can become profitable and have like a lower, expense for for rent and lifestyle, etc. So it's just a journey through life. I think a lot of, and even though like I'm mulatto or mixed race, that's true, but I still have to perform. I still have to be confident and do a good job and connect with people. And I really appreciate what you said yesterday. We talked, towards the end of the evening, were you trying to convince your audience and inform them that even though you're Pardo, like you still have to be healthy, you still have to practice your mental health and meditate and do yoga and be a good person in society, regardless if you're mulatto or Pardo or whatever your ethnic or racial background is. You still have to do your best to be a good person. And I don't want to position myself to where it's like being mulatto is so hard, and because it's not. There's a gentleman who's actually from the Caribbean. He's a mixed guy. Shout out to him. He's from the Caribbean, and we had a discussion on my channel a couple times, and he said that to me as well. Like it's not hard being mixed, and I agree with him. I just think we're in a position now where we're finding this kind of space in a community where we can develop cohesion and we can share our stories. Like I'm sharing my story, you share your story all the time, and that's how we build connections with people. And it's really important for us to do that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would ask you another thing. Do you think in the future mulatto people will say they are mulatto more than now? I want to hear you about the future, about what you see in these new generations.
Most definitely, and that's what gives me kind of hope and ambition as well. Is when I started making content and just speaking my mind, I knew that it was the younger generation. They're going to be the ones who really are going to push this forward. I'm just amplifying my voice, giving people an option. I'm not special. And like I said, even with my name, the title, the brand, Mulatto Vanguard, inspiration Mulatto came from the rapper, Miss Mulatto. And she's younger than me, at least a decade. She's like 10 years younger than me. So she does represent the Gen Z. We call it millennial. Mm-hmm. We break it down into like generations.
Yeah,
what time period
we know here.
So yeah, I represent the millennials, and there's a lot of supporters, followers, and also in the Xer category, who are older than me. I have a lot of supporters, etc., from that generation. And I feel the largest disconnect with the boomer, the older generation, because the one-drop rule, to where it's like they just identify as black their whole life, and they're kind of stuck in their ways. I feel like if you're a millennial or younger, you might think a certain way for a time, but you can always change and adapt. So the older you get, the harder it is to do that. And but yeah, my inspiration I see with the younger people, I started analyzing social media trends. Even before I started uploading content, like I said, I was just consuming everyone else's content, watching their material, and I would see on TikTok, or I first heard about mixed race spaces and pages on Instagram a few years ago, and it was for women. It was for mixed race women. It was talking about their hair, their curls. And they had a whole page. I forgot the name of it. It could be Mixed Race Girls or something, Mixed Race Curls, something like that. But it was a whole social media page on Instagram that celebrated mixed women and their aesthetic. And I was so thrilled to see that. And I was like, well, they're finally galvanizing, coming together and talking about their own experiences. And it was liberating for me. And I don't see anything out there that men were doing something that was, on the same page. I just didn't see it. A lot of the men, the mulattoes, just kind of accepted this like subordinate position, being a light-skinned black, which meant that they would have to accept hazing, we call it. Hazing means they would have to accept darker skinned people talking crap about them, calling them weak, and then this weird crap where if they talk back, the light skinned guy, they'd be perceived as like anti-black or a negative or a bad guy. So I definitely would see that the women, the mixed women, were more communal, forming community, and they developed their spaces, where the men were more, so they just took a crappy deal and just kind of accepted being like a light-skinned punk to darker-skinned blacks, instead of kind of developing their own like social networks and social circles. So I didn't see any group of males that I can kind of like join or team up with. I was like, let me just do my own thing and let's see what happens. But yeah, the younger people give me hope, and even now that I've been doing this content for a couple years, I see, like I said, TikTok is kind of the main platform that a lot of the younger folks, they utilize. And yeah, I mean, I'm very inspired, man. They're speaking their mind. They're pushing mulatto forward. We already have a flag. We have the consciousness is growing. People are involved in the conversation, and that's so I see a good trajectory. As you were saying, the more this goes on, more and more people are going to identify themselves in mulatto. Even with me and my social media, my branding, I saw the lady, Miss Mulatto, the rapper, use that term. I was like, okay, let me name my channel. I'm seeing other YouTube channels pop up. I'm seeing other TikTok pages pop up, and Instagram and stuff, where people are put mulatto in their title. They identify as mulatto, and it's their title, their page. These are people my age, maybe a little older, even younger. It's only going to grow. That now they see enough people that do it, more people are going to catch on to it. And so the trajectory, the growth, it looks good from what I can see. All right, it's been a beautiful conversation. We went through a lot. We talked about a lot. We're going to talk about a lot more in the future too, because this is literally only the beginning. And it's an honor and blessing to meet Beatrice. Her hospitality has been wonderful. I mean, this was like the main central agenda to come here to Brazil, was to meet Beatrice and to talk about this stuff. I mean, the past several days I get to learn so much about the Brazilian culture and the Pardo plight and etc. And it's been a really amazing experience here. So I'm so thankful to be able to do this, and I definitely want to encourage other people out there to pursue the similar actions, the same actions, to reach out to people. It's about building connections, building friendships, and connecting with the world, really. Because we might have different cultures and different laws in our countries, but as people of the earth, like, we can still connect with people and build relationships, and that's extremely positive. So I'm thankful for this opportunity. This is very meaningful, and I really hope that my audience gets a lot from this.
Thank you very much, Adam. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you to hear me. In the next year, I will start to produce content bilingual. I will put the English subtitles so you can read, you can understand, and I really want to do this connection, because we're mixed people, mulatto people, we are in the whole world, and we have to do this connection. So thank you very much. It was a very good conversation.
Ciao.
Ciao.